if you're listening to me right now, you have felt some kind of decline in your relationship, or as the song goes, you have lost that loving feeling. Or maybe you just want to make sure that this decline never happens to you. Either way, it's important to know that you can absolutely continue to have a strong physical connection and fall more in love with your partner as the years progress. But how do you do it? Well, today we're going to discuss the research, as always, and then I'm coming at you with my top 5 tips for getting the sizzle and that loving feeling back in your relationship. So stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Here I am again, coming at you with a very requested topic. I've gotten so many emails, DMs, messages, whatever, you name it, asking for this. And way back in season 1, I did some episodes on these topics, but I'm coming at you with hopefully a fresh perspective and not hopefully, with a fresh perspective, to tackle this, and as always, my tips. So, and I do want to say thanks for the birthday love. I received a lot of it a few weeks ago. It was my birthday. I'm a Libra. Yes. Do with that which you will. And I want to remind people, and thank you for the reviews for the podcast. I know it's a pain in the ass to leave these reviews, but I need them. I need you to do them. I will say this too, you can, again, rate it on Spotify. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you've read my book, my Amazon #1 best-selling book, Be Happily Married, I'm grabbing the book. Even if your partner won't do a thing, if you're here on, if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see the book. How nice. Go into Amazon and leave a review for the book. That really helps more people find the book. So, these are just ways to give back. I try to give you ever so much in every episode. You know I love you. And it's your way to give back to me because we are in a relationship, as I remind you often. And the Boundaries Made Easy book, I know, kind of after the podcast, kind of cute, is looking like a firm November release date. That's this year, 2023. And I'm really excited and I can't wait to bring it to you. And I'll say more as that's happening. I'm really proud of it. It's everything about how to make and hold boundaries. So we'll keep you posted. All right. So I want to say this, a little caveat before we get going. I'm doing this today from a really a heterosexual point of view. And in my practice, I work with LGBTQ plus clients, but I do and have those people in my life as personal friends, and grew up in an environment with and I have family members and all the things, and in a very open, loving environment. And I'm 1,000% supportive of LGBTQ plus people in the world. But I will say the vast majority of my work is with people who identify as heterosexual. And I don't mean to disinclude anyone, but I've really found it difficult to write in a way that's completely inclusive, to do these in a way where I'm giving, 50 different kinds of examples, non-binary and maybe thruples and people, and it really gets muddy, and my message gets muddy. I've tested this with people, even my LGBTQ plus friends, and I'm really going from what they've really let me know that there are lots of different podcasts aimed just specifically there. And so again, I don't want to disinclude anyone. And this is where I'm at today. I'm saying that this is what you've got for today. If you're one of my beautiful listeners who identifies in any way other than heterosexual, please know, I do see you. I believe my tips will absolutely apply to you, but the research, I look for research on LGBTQ+, but there's not a lot yet. But most of the research is done with heterosexual people. So that should be taken into account. You should think of that, and with the tips. But I will, as I give examples and things, I say, boyfriend, girlfriend a lot, man, woman. I do. I say those things, and I just want you to know I see you, and I will continue to work on myself and how I talk on the podcast. And I just want you to know I have great love for you. And if that doesn't always come across in my language, and I will continue to work on myself and figure out new ways to be inclusive. Okay, so there you go. So I said all that. So let's get to it. What I want, I think, talk about first is sharing in a relationship. And I want to say this well. Being in a long-term relationship, it means a lot of sharing. And again, you could be married, cohabitating, or just in a long-term relationship where you don't live together, but you've been together a long time. And I don't even know what I consider long-term. I would say that if you, I don't know, I think if you've been together more than 3 years is probably what I consider long-term. But, you can consider, I'm open. If you consider long-term 8 months or 12 months or 18 months, I'm cool. I'm cool. Keep listening. I think what I always get a little concerned when I have people who are dating like 8 months or something, and they're having all these problems already. It's really a bit of a red flag. And maybe that's a different episode. I can go over that. But I get a little concerned when there's so many issues so early in a relationship, when you're really supposed to just be in the I'm in love, we're having sex on the kitchen table every day, and life is incredible. I would say to you, take a step back if you're really having so many problems so early on. I don't think it's a great sign. I'm not saying you're doomed, and I'm not saying you should break up tomorrow. I'm just saying, maybe see a therapist, or maybe look into that a little deeper. Because as most of us know, the early stages of relationship are just really like the heady times. I'm going to actually talk about that and the science behind it today. So whatever long-term relationships means to you, if you're listening, I'm here for you. I got it. Or again, if you're not in one yet, but you want to safeguard for your future, I'm here. So when you're in any kind of really long-term relationship, there's a lot of sharing. And obviously there is in a new relationship too, but it's really growing in all kinds of different ways when you're together longer. So on the one side, all that sharing means, divvied up household chores, co-parenting if you've got kids, splitting expenses, all the things that come with having a life together. And on the other side of sharing is a lot of time together, which breeds familiarity. And a lot of familiarity often then breeds resentment. And we'll talk about that today. But I'll often meet with a couple who have different ideas when it comes to sharing. So let's say the husband, boyfriend thinks, I get this a lot. He thinks he's doing plenty, but the girlfriend or wife feels like he's not pulling his weight. Okay. In the sharing of the life together. So she feels shortchanged, unappreciated, and like she has to control everything or it doesn't get done. And then I've got a man who feels like he's unappreciated. It seems like nothing he ever does is enough. He feels shortchanged because maybe she's not having enough sex with him to his desires. And he doesn't feel trusted because she keeps, reminding him about things. And then on top of that, this sharing of a life together, this familiarity, he's clipping his toenails and letting them fall on the floor, or he walks into the room and farts and even thinks, I can't tell you how many men, I love you if you're listening, but it's not funny to fart in front of your partner. With your guy friends, sure. If you want to have 8-year-old boy humor, party on. I am telling you, if you want like a blowjob later, I would not fart in front of your woman. So she, because she feels like she never wants to have sex with him again. He's doing these disgusting things, or to her that are disgusting. Some of you might like the farting and be okay with it. God bless you. I'm not. Or she's feeling like your mother, reminding you, hey, pick up your toenail clippings after you clip your toenail, or did you make your doctor's appointment, or remember to pick up, milk on the way home, or when she's doing all that, she feels like your mother. She doesn't have sex with her son. That would be gross. So you can see where it gets really weird. And day after day, year after year of this, and some feelings start to dominate. Resentment, boredom, loneliness, anger, frustration, and that leads to feeling disconnected and really ultimately to feeling like you've fallen out of love. But you might be thinking like, oh, but isn't this what relationships are all about? Isn't this just what happens, especially after you've been together a long time? And I would say the answer is a resounding no to that. No, no, no. So let me explain why. And I'm going to do that by talking about one of my girl crushes, Helen Fisher, who I've talked about a lot on the podcast. If you're listening, Helen, I love you. And let's talk. And she has a great TEDx, TED Talk, and she's incredible. The books, everything. She's amazing. I really am in awe of her research. And so she's a biological anthropologist and a senior research fellow at the Kinsey Institute. And she's been studying brains in love for decades. And obviously she has colleagues with her doing this. And what she talks about in her one of her TED Talks and just in her books, and I love TED Talks, but I read the books because you know me. And she talks about how that there are basically 3 basic types of love. There's sex drive, romantic love, and these feelings of deep attachment for your partner, okay? And her research shows, and this is by the way of functional MRIs, that when we have those in-love feelings with another person, we have activity in 3 main parts of the brain, okay? So first we see action in a tiny spot at the base of the brain called the ventral tegmental area, the VTA. That's what I often forget what VTA stands for, but I'm remembering right now, so that's good. The ventral tegmental area, the VTA. And the VTA is part of your brain's, it's part of its reward system. Sometimes we call it part of your lizard brain. And this part of the brain is way below your, rational, conscious thoughts. This deep level of your brain is all about pleasure, the motivation to pursue, to get rewards, the wanting, focusing attention, craving. That's what gets lit up when you're in love, okay? And then that's one part. Another part of the brain that's affected when we're in love is I always say this wrong, I think, the caudate nucleus. And this is an area associated with how your brain learns and how it stores and processes memories. And in relation to being in love, it's also in charge of reward detection, like looking for rewards, and your expectation of things, okay? And I'll tell you why this all matters in a minute. And then the third part of the brain showing activity when you're in love is in something called your A10 cells. And these cells make dopamine, basically, which I'm sure you've heard about dopamine. I talk about dopamine a lot. It's a neurotransmitter in charge of things like pleasure, and stimulation, and attention and focus and wanting and craving also. And these cells spray dopamine to other areas of your brain when you're in love. I know. So you might not be shocked to hear that these areas of the brain that I just mentioned are also active when you do drugs. And this is why many neuroscientists compare being in love to being addicted to drugs, because that intense feeling of being in love activates the same system as in the brain as drugs, like cocaine. So dopamine activates the reward circuit, which makes love a highly pleasurable experience. And it's really similar to, the euphoria we associate with drug and alcohol use. So all of this brain chemistry is why when you fall in love, your partner becomes super special to you. Everything they do is unique. It has distinctive meaning. We start to focus on this person, often to the detriment of everything else in our lives when we're newly in love. You remember when you'd be, daydreaming at work about this person, you couldn't get your work done, or when you'd skip work to spend the day in bed together, or you'd bow out of time with your friends to spend more time with this, your new love. So when things are going well with this new person, you're so happy, you're over the moon, again, euphoric. But when they start going badly or something bad happens, you are likely becoming, depressed, upset, obsessive in a new way. And I can tell you from being a recovering heroin addict, this is exactly what happens when they took away my heroin. Okay? It's exactly what happens. You become depressed, upset, and obsessive about the thing. So, and you can think about if something happens when you're in a new relationship, something bad, and you're like, oh my God, what went wrong? I wish I hadn't sent that text. I ruined it. You're thinking and perseverating all the time. You might start or continue to stalk them on social media. You're speaking to your friends nonstop. They're hearing the same stories over and over. You're repeating yourself over and over about the relationship or what went wrong and I should have done this and what about this. They can't friggin' stop talking about it. Either way, at this point, the other person is all you can think about and you feel an intense energy in relation to them. You end up with this powerful craving for an emotional connection and so you just want to hear, I love you. You're all I can think about, right? This is all we're doing. So, and again, the majority of these feelings are caused by that dopamine increase, which really is stimulating these truly ancient neural networks in your brain associated with craving, wanting, all that intense focus, that motivation around this other person. So that's all happening when you're first in love, okay? And I'll talk about it later maybe too, but Fisher and her colleagues have done MRIs where they compare these fMRIs where they compare people who report being newly in love and then they take couples who've been together 20 plus years. I think that was the number. It was 20 plus years. And they who reported we feel in love. We have that in love feeling as we did when, as people do when they're first in love. So this is people's reports, right? Like what they're reporting. But what they do, what Fisher and her colleagues have done is compared these fMRIs, of these kind of brain scans of these two groups, and they have found the same neural pathways are firing. The same things are happening in the brain. So people are telling the truth when they're 20 plus years in and say they're in love. They can tell because it's what it's like for these newly in love folks. So you can absolutely have that. It is not a given that there will be a decline. So, but why do you fall out of love, right? Why? How come that wonderful beginning doesn't keep happening? And there are two main ways we fall out of love. And the first is chemical, right? Because there's all these chemicals I just said that are happening when you're newly in love. So when we're in that initial burst of romantic love, it lowers the levels of another neurotransmitter called serotonin. And serotonin is another contributing factor in all that that single-minded concentration and obsession with your partner, with this person you're in love with. And these feelings can also cause you to really be blind to your partners, to these annoying or undesirable traits and habits that they have. So that's what happens in the early stages of a relationship. So you don't see him chewing with his mouth open somehow, or how she steals all the covers at night. Your brain chooses to focus only on the qualities that you like. It's chemical, I know. But after you've been in love for some time, you've been together for some time, you develop a tolerance to these pleasurable chemicals. Again, it's like what happens with drugs, right? You develop a tolerance and you need to keep doing more drugs to get the same effect. But that doesn't happen in relationships, right? That's not what goes on. So, again, all that, the serotonin, the dopamine, everything you are getting, you developing tolerance. And, not shockingly, voila, these are all those annoying traits become on full display. All of a sudden you're seeing him chewing with his mouth open, and the fact that she's got all the covers at night, or whatever it is that you were somehow overlooking in the very beginning. You didn't really notice. Sometimes this shows up with, I've had this a lot, where someone actually has problematic drinking, like this person you fall in love with, but again, you're not noticing it. And then you're a couple years into the relationship and you're noticing that, wow, they drink a lot, or they do this thing a lot, or they avoid conflict, or whatever it is, you were not seeing it. It's like, and that's why we say love is blind. You realize where that comes from. Love is blind, but it's from a chemical place too. So, and really related to that, being in love deactivates, for lack of a better term, the neural pathway responsible for negative emotions. How do you like that? So your ability to make really critical assessments of your partner shuts down. And you again, it's that love is blind thing. When we're falling out, but when we're falling out of love, we, again, as those chemicals are not doing what they used to do, we start to see the quote unquote negative, right? That was always there, but we couldn't see it previously. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, but they changed. They weren't like this when we were first together. And it's likely not true. It's likely not true. There was tons of, maybe not tons, there were likely, there could have been tons, but there were likely many ways that these things were showing up and you literally weren't seeing it. So, and I'm not saying people don't change when they get comfortable in other things. I'll talk about that, but not as much as you think. I know it's nice to blame them, but it's also your own love blindness that got in the way. So, so you start to see your partner as they really are. And guess what? Shocking, disillusionment starts to set in, as then as the years go by and you have children and a mortgage or the other stresses and components of building a life together, these new quote unquote faults, these faults that you're suddenly seeing take on an even greater space in your brain because you've got more invested now, which means more to lose. So things that weren't such a big deal in the beginning seem like a bigger deal now. And yeah, I know. Just sit with that for a second, right? And then the other main way we fall out of love is this familiarity and the novelty wearing off of the relationship. And there's a wonderful book. She's Esther Perel, very famous relationship person, but a great book called Mating in Captivity. It's been around a long time now. In there, she really notes that becoming more comfortable and stable in your relationship is the very thing that makes having any kind of real erotic, sex with your partner, it makes it harder. It makes it more difficult. And, she argues, and I certainly agree, that erotic energy, that it feeds on newness, it feeds on novelty in the relationship. And once your relationship is past that early honeymoon phase, it often becomes, of course, very predictable and expected, which leads to boredom in the relationship, in the bedroom. And she describes this very famously as the kind of battle between domesticity and eroticism, like how that shows up. So, because to feel uninhibited desire, you need a little distance. You need some secrets. You need a little mystery, maybe even some anonymity. It's not hard to see how all this intimacy and closeness in our relationship can get in the way of that. I shouldn't say the intimacy doesn't. The being too close and overly familiar does. So let me get clear on that, because I think there's a lot of confusion and misinterpreting around what comforting and comfortable mean in a relationship, okay? And intimacy, like how do all these things... Comforting in a relationship is awesome. I am all for comforting. Comforting is knowing that the other person, my partner, has my back no matter what. Comforting is, snuggling up on a cold night and feeling warm and safe together, right? But being too comfortable in your relationship can be a problem, and for me, that's stuff like leaving the bathroom door open. Why do we do this? Why, I have an issue with this. Close the friggin' door. I don't understand why people feel a need to leave the door open as they're pooping or peeing and talking to their partner. it's such an easy fix. Like, do you really have to say the thing right now? It's such an easy fix to help keep things a little fresher, a little more, something else. It's again, like I said, it's not funny to fart in front of your partner, asking your partner to look at that mole on your neck, wearing your ratty sweatpants from college, hitting the gym and deciding to not to shower and flop into bed because you're tired, you're sweaty and gross and you stink. That's not comforting. That's just comfortable. And people confuse all this comfortableness with intimacy. You think they're the same, and they're not. I can hear you now. I know some of you are, because you do these things, you're like, we've been together a long time. That's the best part. You get to relax. Well, of course, I want you to be relaxed. I'm not talking about not being relaxed. I want you to be at ease with your partner. What's interesting is a lot of people are not at ease or relaxed with their partners. They walk on eggshells around their partners. They're worried. Like, if I say this, my partner's going to think this. That is not right. But then they'll poop in front of them. Like that. No, one is way more important than the other. So I'm talking about, I want you to remember that I want you to remember that your partner always deserves your thoughtfulness and attention. It's not thoughtful or attentive to not turn on the fan if you've taken a dump. It's not thoughtful and attentive to pick your nose in front of your partner. It's not thoughtful or attentive to ignore what has to be done around the house and hope that they do it. It's not thoughtful or attentive to sit in front of a screen every night and not try to think of a way to have a deeper connection with your person, right? Again, it's all very comfortable, but it's not comforting. And comforting is what you need to be comforting to one another, to feel cherished, to feel seen, to feel heard. That has nothing to do with being overly comfortable. Intimacy is about vulnerability. It's about emotional closeness. And I don't want you to confuse, not being embarrassed to pee in front of your partner with emotional closeness. It is not the same thing. And I know some of you are going to come after me in the comments or hate on this or whatever. Right now, maybe you're going to turn this off. I'm telling you what is from 40 years of working with couples. If you can't have it both ways, usually. I'm sure there are outliers. There always are people who are, have side-by-side toilets and are shitting together. I'm sure they exist, okay? I'm sure they're out there and they're so close and they have outrageously good sex. And I have never met that couple, but I'm sure they exist. They have to exist. I am saying don't count on being an outlier. Never count on being the outlier. And it's great if you can be, but the vast majority of you, trust me, who are listening going, I'm the outlier, or not. Okay? Because again, if you're listening, it means there's probably something not there. So I would ask you to be a little open about it. So relaxing again around another person to me is emotional more than physical. I'm not walking on eggshells. I feel relaxed. I feel like when I give an opinion, it's listened to, it's heard. I feel like I can be goofy. I feel like I can say anything and this person will have my back. They might not agree, but they'll have my back. That's being relaxed. That's emotionally being relaxed. Physically being relaxed, again, I think comes from that to a degree. But if that's your focus and that's how you think you're intimate, I don't know that you're correct. I don't know that you're wrong. Maybe maybe you're that one in a gazillion people. But I'd really like you to at least look at it and make a different, be more open about if it's true or not. Again, I want you to be emotionally relaxed, but that, again, doesn't translate to, scratching your balls while you're having a conversation. I say with love. I often will say, if you wouldn't do it on a first date, don't do it later. So, and I don't think you'd be talking to someone scratching your balls on the first date. I don't think you would have had a second date. You know what I mean? So again, try to separate some of that might have become conflated. Try to think about, even as I'm talking, I'm not 100% right. So try to think about of course I'm 100% right. Haha. But you know what I mean? Try to think about what I'm saying and really try to put that through a critical eye for yourself. What fits for me and what doesn't. If you're having a really strong negative reaction to what I'm saying, I would look at that. If you're feeling defensive, I would look at that. Because you don't need to be feeling, I love you. You don't need to feel defensive. I'm not judging you if you do it this way. I'm just offering you that there's other choices. So let's talk about regaining the spark, right? Regaining the spark. So, and that in love feeling. Let me say again that you do not need to fall out of love, okay? And that there doesn't have to be that inevitable downward slide in your relationship. So okay. So these, I mentioned already, I just want to say, so those, Helen Fisher and our colleagues did these, again, studies it was at Stony Brook, I think, again. And when they're looking at people who are in these long-term relationships and they're finding that their dopamine reward system was the same as that found in the brains of the participants, so people who had 25 to 30 years in love, it was 25 to 30 even, but it was a minimum of 20, still had that butterflies in the stomach and showed all the same things on the functional MRIs as those newly in love people. So I really want to say, it's real, right? The research is real. What can happen for you is real. So, okay. So if your relationship, let's say, has transitioned from that kind of passionate romantic love and into, a different, being either out of love or, again, feeling like things have really, that there's no sizzle anymore. There's no kind of attraction. There's nothing going on there. There are definitely things you can do. So there's a wonderful book called The Normal Bar by these researchers. I think it's Christiana Northrup, Pepper Schwartz. I've always loved Pepper Schwartz because I love her name, and James Witt. And there was a huge study they completed. It was over like 70,000 people in 25 countries. And they were trying to find out what couples with a great sex life were doing, right? So, and what they found, again, all these different countries, that's why I love their book, is that couples who are, rocking it in the bedroom and I guess rocking it on the kitchen counter and everywhere else, they're doing some things very continually. And I'll get to my tips in a minute, but I want to at least give you this from the research. They have makeout sessions and kiss each other passionately. Okay? These are things that they do. All these couples who report a great sex life, here's what they do. Here's what they have in common. There was actually a German study that found that men who kiss their wives every day live 5 years longer than men who didn't. Don't even ask. But I'll link to all the research. But these couples, again, in 70,000 people in 24 countries, they also reported to kiss and touch passionately, but non-erotically every day, even in public. I often tell my clients to think of at least doubling the amount of time they kiss and hug their partners for a week and just see what shifts. These people also cuddled together non-sexually. They said, I love you and mean it, usually every day. They give surprise romantic gifts. They keep playing and having fun together. I'll tell you, I saw an interview recently with Kevin Bacon, the actor Kevin Bacon, and he's been married to an actress, Kyra Sedgwick, for I think it's 35 years, I want to say. They've been married a really long time. And they're like adorable. If you follow them on TikTok or IG or anything, it's like, wow, there's something, you can tell seems very real. I don't know if they're faking it. They are actors. I don't know. But he was asked in this interview, like, do you have to really work at it? Like, how do you do it? How do you keep this relationship, relevant in this way and so close? And he said, we don't focus on working on it. We focus on playing together. And I love that. I've been saying it to my clients like all week. After I saw the interview, keep playing and having fun together. And that is one of the things that this huge study found, that those couples who reported a good sex life, they keep playing and have fun together. Also, they made sex a priority, not the last item of a long to-do list. They talk comfortably about their sex life. They have dates and take romantic vacations. Overall, really, they're just mindful about turning toward one another and giving one another their attention. This is all from the research all the couples had in common. Now, who are having a great sex life. Now, there have also been studies saying what not to do if you want to maintain a good sexual connection, okay, have that spark. And the Sloan Center at UCLA studied couples where both worked and also had young children. And what they found in couples without a good sex life were the following. One, they spent very little time together overall. Two, the men tended to be job-centered while the women tended to be child-centered. Three, they talked a lot about their enormous to-do lists all the time. You might be going, ooh, I do that. Four, they made everything else a priority instead of the relationship. And five is that they basically had become roommates leading parallel lives. Okay? I know. So those are your broad things about this. But so let's get to my actionable tips. So these are Abby's top 5 tips for getting the sizzle and that loving feeling back in your relationship. And tip number 1 is to really work on building intimacy the way your partner likes. And, women and men, again, I'm doing the women and men thing. So you could be woman to woman, men to men, or not, non-binary. It could be a lot of things. But I'm, again, giving this from the research, which designates women and men. And they experience together time very differently. And I have found this in all kinds of relationships. So even the thruples I work with, that people experience together time differently. But here's what's so fascinating. So women get a feeling of emotional closeness from face-to-face speaking. And Helen Fisher talks about this a lot. Again, I keep quoting her because I love her. If anybody knows Helen Fisher who's listening, you let her know I love her, and I'd love to have her on the podcast. We can talk about anything she wants. Women want to, it's what they call anchor their gaze with their partner, and they want to feel that undivided attention. And this, and it's not just Helen Fisher, it's other biological anthropologists. They say it's so interesting that this comes from hundreds of thousands of years of women having babies and looking directly into their eyes, right? As they breastfed them, they're speaking to them, they're teaching them things, right? It's like right there. And this is how you create that special bond, that very direct eye to eye. And women would also sit in circles all the time, right? They would cook together, they would do crafts maybe, doing their sewing, washing. They would have conversations in a circle while looking at one another, right? As they work, they would look up from their work and look directly at each other. And that was all this bonding. And so women want to do this with the men in their lives. I've had countless women in my office who were dumbfounded that their partners didn't realize that texting wasn't enough and getting flowers or gifts didn't help them feel closer to their mates. And this isn't going to work for men to get that in-love feeling, and right? Because men do it differently. In men's history, okay, they built emotional closeness and intimacy from side-by-side doing, right? So again, this is all biological anthropologists saying this. This comes from really millions of years of when men would hunt together, right? So you're in a bush, you're sitting, you're not talking to each other directly because you have to have your eye on the animal you want to take down and kill, right? Together. So here we are together doing something that's very collaborative. That's very, I've got your back, life and death even. If there's another clan or something or a thing they want to kill, they are not taking their eyes off that thing they want to take down in some way, the person or the animal. And, you're not going to, you can't throw your spear, right? If you, and hit the tiger, the bear, the whatever in that, and kill it with a kill shot or throw a rock at it. If you're looking at the person next to you, right? And it was Helen Fisher. She says that, I forget what book it was in. I'll find it and I'll link to it in the show notes. But she said, for millions of years, men faced their enemies, but sat side by side with their friends, right? So that's what happens. You'd face an enemy, you'd look directly at them, right? If another clan was coming to battle, you're staring at them. If there's an animal that's trying to kill you, you're staring at it. But you sit side by side with your friends, right? And here's crazy. In studies of men bonding with one another, they found that when one man looks up, the other actually looks away. And I have tested this myself, and it is true. It's very interesting. They don't hold eye contact in the same way. So I would say to you, if you're men listening, know this about women. If you're women listening, know this about men. And, it's a very famous idea, or famous, I don't know if famous is the right word. It's a very known idea, or known tip or tactic to sit in a car with someone, like a kid. It could be your kids. It works really well with kids, or your partner, and maybe drive somewhere, and you can have a deeper conversation, because you kind of have your eye. One person has their eye on the road. You're not staring at each other. That there's a way that there can be a lot more ease in a conversation, and it does work really, really well. I find that driving works better than almost anything. But it can be other things too. Where again, you're kind of side by side, but there's another thing that maybe has your focus. You could be sitting on a bench out in nature or something also, and that could work, right? So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is don't be overly familiar. You got to work on that. I've talked about it a lot. As I've said, all that goes on with the sharing a home and life, it leads to a lot of over familiarity. And this over familiarity makes it hard to keep physical intimacy, fresh and fun. So I want you to make sure you do keep things private. Again, need to pee, close the door. Need to fart, leave the room. Have some weird skin tag on your inner thigh, show it to your best friend or your doctor, not necessarily your partner, right? I'm not saying you could never have your partner look at something. God forbid you think you have skin cancer or some mole that changed. Of course you can ask your partner. I'm saying don't make that the main highlight of what you talk about. That's what I'm saying. You really want to sort of focus on 3 things. You want to find ways to create some distance, some healthy distance in your relationship. That really helps. Esther Perel again talks about this a lot. That really helps with the overfamiliarity. And you want to be conscious about bringing novelty or newness into your relationship. I've often asked couples to do something new together. That could be going to an ashram together where it's new to both of you. It should be new to both of you, not one of you. You don't want one of you expert. You want to have that novelty together. I had a couple, this is a while ago now, but I had them take ice skate. Neither of them knew how to ice skate. I had them take ice skating lessons together. If you go to a different restaurant, try the Ethiopian place down the street that you've never been to. Or if you go to the same restaurant, make a commitment to eat brand new things off the menu. Just try brand new things, believe it or not. That really brings some newness into the relationship. Just think about, bringing in some other energy. And I will say you have to make your physical relationship a priority and not last on a to-do list at the end of a long day. It doesn't always have to be sex, but you have to think about that. Again, the touching, not to just we cuddle at night, during the day too. And that actually brings me to tip number 3, which is to absolutely positively focus on micro connections. And in episode 252, if you need to look up the number, I did a whole episode on micro connections. I said instead of date nights, have, focus on micro connections or something like that. Because I always say, right, that great relationships aren't built in a day. Great relationships are built daily. And lasting emotional connection is built from micro connections. And these don't happen in one fell swoop, like a date night or a great vacation. These happen over the course of a day. And that day builds into weeks, and that week builds into months, and months build into years. You get it. And it's all the little attentions you pay to your partner to connect. And I have a bunch of tips in that episode, but I'm just going to share my favorite one, which I've talked about a lot, which is basically whenever your partner walks in the house, stop whatever you're doing and physically go greet them at the door. Be your dog. Beat your dog to the door. Give them a kiss or a hug or both. Welcome them home. Make eye contact. Be intentional with having them feel the love, the happiness you feel that they're home. You don't have to answer the door naked, although hey, if you're down, go for it. I'm really just talking about bringing some energy, some fun, playfulness, any of that to this little connection to really connect them for a minute when they get home. And the other thing you can do with a micro connection is that if your partner asks you a question or speaks to you, stop doing what you're doing and give them your full attention. I would say with your kids too, with everybody, but put down your phone, turn down the volume on the TV, look up from your computer, maybe even close the top of the computer and stop typing. Full attention. It just takes seconds up to a minute, but it really moves it along. All right. Tip number 4 is to get naked. We are not just, again, being in love, bringing the sizzle back. So Harvard researchers Richard Schwartz, and Jacqueline Olds, or Jacqueline, maybe it is. I don't even know. They happen to be married, by the way. They have studied love for a very long time, decades. Great book also. I'll link to it. And they identify something they call the rustiness phenomenon. And Olds, Jacqueline, says that, couples get out of the habit of sex, of being incredibly in love, and often there's often good reasons, sick parent, children, work, but that type of love can be reignited. And sexual activity activates the brain's reward circuit, as we know, making couples really desire each other more. And she says that alone could be enough to bring some couples back to those, earlier, exciting, exhilarating days when all you could think about was that newfound love, right? And sexual activity and touching also, of course, increases hormones like oxytocin and vasopressin. And these hormones are all about bonding and attachment, and also about relaxation. Like vasopressin is sort of your body's natural Valium in a lot of ways. So there's all this bonding, attachment, relaxation. And we know, we've heard oxytocin and vasopressin usually when we talk about pregnancy and nursing and mother-infant attachment, but they're also released during sex and any skin-to-skin contact. And again, they deepen feelings of feeling attached to the other person and make couples feel closer to one another. That's why you feel that way after having sex. It's, oxytocin's been called like the love hormone. It again deepens those feelings of attachment. It makes us feel closer and triggers, again, this vasopressin triggers feelings of contentment, calm, security, right? Really good stuff. Dr. Luis Garcia, it's not Luis. It's Luis. Dr. Luis Garcia of Rutgers University also believes that having sex is a good way to reignite those earlier feelings. He points to, there's a number of studies that show that sexual satisfaction and satisfaction with the relationship are highly correlated with one another. And research has consistently found that having a satisfying sexual life is a key trait of people in successful long-term relationships. And I'll link to all his research too and all that. So get naked. Again, in skin-to-skin contact. It doesn't just have to be getting naked, but skin-to-skin. And then tip number 5 is to think of the person lovingly. Dr. Lucy Brown is a neuroscientist at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and she's been I didn't double check that. Is she still there? I don't remember. I apologize, but she was there, and I think she's still there. And she's been involved in a ton of studies looking again at those fMRIs, those functional MRIs of people in love. And one of the things she's noted is that all those areas in the brain we discussed earlier that light up when we're in love also light up when people simply looked at pictures of their partner and thought loving thoughts. Oh, I know. So if you're looking to get that spark back, if you're looking to fall in love with your person again, reach for a picture of your partner or the two of you at your wedding or at a party or, something great. And think of how you love this person. Consciously think loving thoughts about them. I would love it if it was a picture of the two of you like laughing at a party. If it's that, think of that day and the fun you were having. Take yourself back to a time that you felt in love and play that like a movie in your head while you look at the picture. And you would practice that for just 3 minutes a day. Set a timer, 3 minutes every day for a week. And I am telling you, you're going to start feeling differently about your partner. You're going to start to feel more connected and then more of that in love feeling. Woo! That is it, my loves. Those are my top 5 tips. That is all the research. That is all I got for you. As always, I'm always so grateful that you're here with me. Thank you for writing in your questions and your thoughts. Remember, again, if you write in a question, it needs to be something I can answer on the podcast. It can't be looking for individual advice. That's unethical for me to like give you an email. I know nothing about you. Getting that specific doesn't work. If you want me to like answer a question somewhere, I can look at that, but don't, just if it's that big a deal that you need such specific information, I would hope would be speaking to an actual therapist. I am an actual therapist, but you know what I mean, to a therapist of your own. But I love hearing from you. Please, again, remember to leave, to support me. Just remember in our relationship to give back, and it'll make you feel good that you give back and you write a comment under a video, a loving one, or you like something, or you subscribe on YouTube, or you buy a mug on the website, or a notebook to journal in, whatever. So all of those ways. Leave a review of the book, leave a review somewhere else. It's all ways you can support. So I appreciate it so much. I appreciate you being here with me, spending this time together. I feel such great love for you and so grateful to have this time together. All right. You're amazing. Have an incredible week, and I'll talk to you real soon.